broadcast by the Labour Party.
Now we join the ITN News at 10:05.
From the headquarters of ITN, News at 10 with Julia Sommerville.
The Great Escape, how Azil Nadir got away from Britain. Belgrade says the Bosnian Serbs have agreed the peace plan. The government surrenders over the Maastricht social chapter. And Sellers says it'll be a long time till I can face playing again. Good evening. Azil Nadir, the runaway former chairman of Polypec, is sitting tight and apparently safe in Turkish North Cyprus tonight. He flew there last night and said he was happy to be home. Less happy are the Serious Fraud Office and the London businessman who put up £1 million bail for Mr. Nadir. Mr. Nadir was due to stand trial here on theft and false accounting charges. Britain has asked for his return but doesn't recognise the Turkish Republic of North Cyprus and so has no extradition treaty. Stephen Cape reports.
The trial was just months away, and Azil Nadir faced 13 charges of theft and false accounting, involving £30 million. His friend, Turkish Cypriot businessman Ramadan Guni, guaranteed £1 million of bail money to keep him here. Tonight he risks losing it all.
It's up to the judge to decide whatever is going to happen. But whatever is going to happen, I have to face the consequence.
Later, Mr. Guni's solicitor read a statement to waiting reporters.
Mr. Guni entered into that surety in good faith, and since then he's done everything in his power to ensure that Mr. Nadir stays in this country to stand his trial.
The Serious Fraud Office tomorrow is expected to seek a warrant for the arrest of Nadir if he fails to return. They've always opposed bail.
His first court appearance, the prosecution opposed bail. The main ground for that opposition was the fear that he would abscond. We have consistently and strenuously opposed Mr. Nadir's applications for the return of his passport, continuing to assert a real fear that he might abscond.
The Home Office say Nadir's decision to leave was not their responsibility. Customs and Excise say it wasn't theirs. Questions are being asked about why bail was given.
I'm frankly surprised, extremely surprised, that in these circumstances, given the gravity of the charges alleged against this individual, and in view of the opposition to bail, that the magistrates nevertheless persisted in granting bail.
On Monday afternoon, Nadir left his home in London and, as part of the conditions for bail, reported to his local police station as usual. That evening, he met business friend Ramadan Gunya for a final meeting. It's now believed on Tuesday he travelled to France by ferry and car as he continued his getaway by air, eventually arriving in the Turkish capital, Istanbul. There he made the final leg of his journey by private jet to Erkan Airport in North Cyprus, home and safety from the long arm of British law. This is where Azil Nadir's rags to riches story started, in the Clerkenwell Road in London. From here he built a business empire with electronics companies and a worldwide fruit operation. But it was 1990 when his Polypec group collapsed with debt to more than £1 billion. Despite bankruptcy, Nadir is still regarded as a wealthy man. His hotels and other businesses in Turkish-controlled North Cyprus have not been touched by UK administrators.
Well, the value is substantial. Mr. Nadir was an extremely wealthy man. We know the works of art are measured in hundreds of thousands of pounds apiece, and the value of the antiques and the investments is also measurable in millions.
So far, the authorities in North Cyprus have refused to return Azil Nadir to Britain. So for the moment, he lives in luxury and out of reach.
Well, our correspondent Robert Moore is in Cyprus. Robert, what can you tell us about Mr. Nadir's whereabouts tonight?
Well, Julia, it must all be rather galling for the British authorities, because tonight we know he's holding a big party to celebrate what he calls his return home. We know he's in his luxury villa in the north of the island in a village called Lapta, which is not far from the main port of Kyrenia. He clearly is playing very much the role of the hero rather than of the returning, the hero rather than the fugitive. And he's invited not just his friends and family, but many, significantly, local politicians.
So can we take it that there's absolutely no likelihood that the authorities there will return him to face justice in this country?
It seems most unlikely, and not only because there's no extradition treaty. He is a hugely popular man in the north of the island, almost a Robin Hood figure, because although he's made billions of pounds, much of it perhaps dubiously, he's ploughed a huge amount of that profit back into the economy of the north of Cyprus, almost single-handedly breaking the economic isolation of that part of the island. So at one stage he was employing something like 9,000 people. So he's a hugely popular figure, and I think it would be almost political suicide for the regime to return him into the hands of British justice.
Robert Moore, thank you very much. In the last half hour, it's been reported that the Bosnian Serb parliament has accepted the Owen Vance peace plan, but with strings. The Belgrade-based Tanjug news agency said there were two conditions. First, the United Nations must lift sanctions against Serbia and its ally Montenegro. And second, there must be a land link between Serb-held territories in Bosnia. During the day, the parliament came under heavy pressure to say yes to the peace plan. If the Bosnian Serb parliament has voted for the peace plan, it means at least 60,000 United Nations soldiers could be sent to police it. Our defence correspondent Geoffrey Archer is with the British troops in Vitez, who could form part of that UN force.
Regiment, yes. The Cheshires and Lancers are ending their 6 months helping food aid get through. Today they were showing their replacements the danger areas.
Around here. This is where all that coax was going down, a machine gun fire on Saturday night. Everything's quiet now.
Being quiet in this area means just the occasional gunshot. The British have had a taste of what peacekeeping would be like, with Bosnian Muslims and Croats killing each other in nearby villages, but they're not empowered to intervene without a new mandate. Military planners believe enforcing the Vance Owen plan would take at least 60,000 soldiers. Of those, the United States is expected to contribute 20,000. Russia should provide a division of some 12,000. Britain and France are under pressure to find 10,000 each. Other countries would make up the remainder. Crack Russian troops recently filmed training with secure UN-guarded corridors linking Serb areas. They've been chosen for the role because the Serbs trust the Russians to support them. Implementing the plan won't be simple. First, they must enforce a ceasefire between all three warring parties. Then supervise the withdrawal of heavy weapons and the retreat of fighters to the new canton boundaries. Finally, they'll want to repatriate refugees and maintain humanitarian aid. In Vitez, the British remain to be convinced that peace will come even if the deal is signed. They still practice taking to the shelters in case their camp is shelled. And until they get new orders, they'll just continue with their aid mission. But if there's confusion in world capitals about how this peacekeeping force is going to be put together, there's even greater uncertainty here. Geoffrey Archer, News at 10, Vitez in Bosnia.
And now our diplomatic editor, James Mates, looks at the latest diplomatic developments.
In a mountain village shrouded in mist, the leaders of Bosnia's Serbian population met to choose between peace and war. Guarded by the troops who conquered so much of Bosnia, it's reported by sources in Belgrade that they've agreed to give back land to the Muslims under the Vance Owen plan if sanctions against Serbia are lifted. The pressure on them was intense. Their leader, Radovan Karadzic, had buckled first, signing the peace plan at the weekend, though he clearly despises it.
Serbs are for the peace, although those maps are terrible, and those maps can be the cause of many other conflicts in this region.
The man who twisted his arm, Serbia's President Milosevic, today bullied the parliament as well. And according to those who brokered the peace plan, it is Milosevic who's been calling the shots.
The fundamental decision has been taken in Belgrade. President Milosevic is going to support the peace process. He has the capacity to pull the rug under them, and he'll do so.
And what converted Milosevic to peace? The Americans, among others, put him under severe pressure with their decision to intervene. President Clinton today welcomed back US troops from Somalia, but he'll soon be sending his servicemen into action again, either to bomb the Serbs if the peace deal breaks down, or to keep the peace if it doesn't. And alongside those American troops, for the first time since 1945, will be the Russians. Boris Yeltsin this morning promising US Secretary of State Warren Christopher he will contribute to a UN peacekeeping force, a formidable coalition of powers now prepared to insist upon peace. Bosnia's Serbs are still raining artillery shells down on civilians in Sarajevo, but their military hardliners have never been more isolated. It is far from certain the United Nations will agree to lifting sanctions before the Vance Owen plan is fully implemented. If they don't, Bosnia's Serbs will have to back down completely or fight on utterly alone.